a very good medical question. I'm sure other people have had something similar to happen like this. And his question was, I was in a automobile accident and I was injured. I was treated at the hospital and sent for an MRI, but Paul had a implant in his ear, and that device was left in his ear during the MRI, and he was diagnosed, or it was damaged rather, during the procedure, and that device is very expensive. So he wants to know who's responsible for getting him a new implant. That's a fair question, because sometimes when things happen, the medical community is not always aware if you have an implant, a pacemaker, or, other stuff.
Well, that's true. I think especially if it's a cochlear implant, means it's implanted in the skull and it goes directly to the brain, and that's what gives him the ability to hear.
Mm-hmm.
If he was in a wreck and it was the other party's fault, then everything that comes from the injuries caused by the wreck are recoverable against the original tortfeasor, who would have been the other driver in the transaction. So that first driver who negligently caused the wreck would be responsible, upon proof, for all of the injuries and damages sustained by this car. Now, that is a fact. The people who did the MRI, however, would also bear responsibility for it if he told them that he had an implant in his head before he had the MRI. Then it would have been incumbent on them to either take that device out, or at least, you can always go to Google, right, and find out if there was any chance of damaging the implant. Now, I understand those implants are pretty expensive, so a lot would depend on what kind of coverage the at-fault driver had, but he's not at a loss for a person against whom to get his recovery. He can't make a double recovery. If he brings a lawsuit and makes a recovery from the at-fault driver, that would be included in it. But he also has a right to expect the MRI people to make good that damage to the property.
Okay, Wendell?
Add a little something?
Well, the other thing I was thinking, the damage to the implant is a med-mal case. I mean, it's a medical negligence case. And again, what Carl had alluded to earlier is the expense in bringing a medical malpractice case is very high. So a lot of question will be how much it would take to replace the implant or the device.
Okay.
Well, stated another way, if you have a right to go against either a negligent driver in what is termed an ordinary negligence case, you really don't want to complicate it by superimposing upon that a medical negligence case. You would go against the driver first and only worry about the other if there was inadequate coverage to pay for the damages.